Welcome. Before we start, I would like to wish all who are celebrating with family and friends a very happy Eid. Thank you. Do we have any apologies for absence? Anybody? Councillor Robinson?
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor. It's Councillor Ridgway.
Councillor Ridgway. Councillor Smith?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, for apologies from Councillor Liz Smage and Councillor Tim Bamford. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Before I begin this meeting, please can I raise a couple of matters in relation to the procedures for speaking. Any member of the council who wishes to speak should indicate by pressing the console in front of them. You will then need to join the queue of speakers that we can see in front of us. You do not need to stand up or wave to indicate that you wish to be added to the list. We will manage the list of speakers alongside my Deputy Mayor. Your microphone light will turn green to indicate that you are in the queuing system. Please be aware that this is a request to speak and not an automatic right to address the chamber. Speakers will be called at my discretion. When I call you to speak, please stand. Please don't touch the console or it will cut your microphone off. Then wait until the light on the microphone turns red before you begin to speak. The microphones will carry the audio without you having to bend down to speak into them. If you wish to speak on a point of order, you will be required to comply with the requirements of Council Procedure Rule 18 and specify which Council Procedure Rule or matter of law has not been complied with before you address the chamber. Points of order are not an opportunity to make comments about any wider matters. Yeah? Thank you. We will return to item 7, election of the leader of the council. Could I confirm that we still have 2 candidates for this position, Councillor Cooper and Councillor Wood? Yeah? No other? I've had a request from all group leaders to introduce a question and answer session with the nominated leaders for up to 1 hour. Questions should be short and focused and will be put to each nominee. The nominees will be given a maximum of 3 minutes to respond to each question. Nominees will take turns in who to answer first. We'll do that in alphabetical order, so we will start with Councillor Cooper and then Councillor Wood. Group leaders will be invited to ask questions first, followed by other members of the council, subject to time available. Any members wishing to ask a question are requested to press their console and we will apply proportionality as far as possible. We want to make this fair. Supplementary questions will not be permitted. Could I now invite the first question from Councillor France and then to Councillor Richards, Taylor, Zaman, Smith and Greaves. Yeah.
Councillor France.
So Councillor France. There you go.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Kirklees Council aim to begin construction of the A62 to Cooper Bridge corridor improvement scheme in 2027. Given the project cost to taxpayers and the likely disruption during the construction, how should the Council ensure the scheme is delivered efficiently, sustainably and with a minimal impact to residents, commuters and wider businesses?
So by the West York. Okay. So, thank you for the question. A large proportion of these costs are being met by West Yorkshire Combined Authority. And so the important thing to do is, of course, with building cost inflation, that is a big part of this. If the scheme takes a long time to deliver, then some of those costs may rise. And so the costs of the scheme are things that we've really got to take account of here and make sure that those are covered. I think we'd probably be wanting to seek assurances from Wicker that if there is building this cost inflation that comes with that scheme, that we've actually got that covered. Disruption, you asked about disruption. Disruption will always come with a scheme like this, any road scheme. We've recently had a road scheme at Lockwood, which has taken the best part of about 18 months to actually deliver. And so any scheme like that will have issues with delivery. So it is a concern there in terms of cost. It is a concern there in terms of the impact on drivers. So we need to. I think one of the things I'd want to do at an early stage was get an idea from council officers about the costings on the scheme. How likely is it that the costs could overrun and go beyond the times that we're expecting, and actually being very clear about what the benefits of the scheme are. Because I think there's a certain amount of debate about the benefits of doing this scheme in the first place compared with the costs. So those are the things I'd want to be looking at.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Some cursory research has revealed where we are at the moment, where we are today. Councillor Cooper mentioned already that it was Wicker funded. And we do know as well that some of this land is Calderdale Council owned, and they've allowed us to have planning authority to control this. So there is obviously a partnership, stakeholder partnership that we have there, goes back to collaboration. We need to keep the people informed. It was originally 70 million, gone down to 53 million, mostly from Wicker, obviously 5.8 from our Kirklees capital plan. But if I think about the topography, the geology and the water courses, that probably throws up some of the stuff that we may need to just think about and reflect on, and there has been a long time past since we had a proper consultation. Nobody disputes that congestion around Cooper Bridge needs addressing and that major infrastructure investment can bring real benefits if delivered properly, and we have seen such schemes mentioned by Councillor Cooper as Lockwood and also Salthebble and Calderdale, where the topography is actually almost exactly the same. The major improvements can ultimately work well but demonstrate the scale and complexity. I am somewhat surprised that the presence of a recognised Shine historic landscape feature on the land likely to be subject to compulsory purchase order and excavation has not yet been raised, particularly by a Green Party leader. And alongside the wider impact upon productive farmland, local watercourses and surrounding fields. For clarity, a Shine feature is a recognised heritage landscape designation linked to an archaeological and historic significance. And this one is about Roman culverts, and it's actually registered with the National Heritage Body. So we may require further archaeological investigation to properly determine its significance. And I'm sure that if the party to my left wasn't aware of that, they would probably want to engage with us on that as well. So again, we found these things out by speaking to the affected landowner, and definitely when it comes to proper consultation, then the council should be engaged in that. Once productive farmland, historic landscape and heritage features are excavated and removed, they simply can't be recreated. They're lost forever. And this is why I believe the council has a duty to fully exhaust lower cost, lower impact alternatives before proceeding towards compulsory purchase and irreversible environmental and heritage impact. Thank you.
Councillor Sooley Richards.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What experience and skills can you call on to successfully fulfil the role of leader of the council?
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When I was 21, I was leading 58 airmen and women, and it was a very nervous experience when you're 21 and you've got 58 men and women who know an awful lot more than you do, and they actually have to salute you. In fact, what I used to do was I used to hide behind the naffy so that no one would see me and then they wouldn't have to salute me. Since that age, I've been leading in all the roles that I've done. Granted, it's not been in a political sense, but I don't need to know everything about politics to lead in this council because there are 69 of us. And so actually, when we work together as a team, then all the little bits of information that I don't understand, I can hopefully rely upon you to bring me that. And I would say we are yet to discover whether that is the case. Clearly, we've not got off to a great start. My experience as a leader brings together productivity increase, reduction in waste, using the Six Sigma skills of Kaizen and the Six Sigma black belt orientation. These things might be new to you. Some people might know about them, but one of the biggest things that we need to try and work out is how do we balance the books and give everybody what they want and increase services, get the basics right, and not be in a situation where anybody in Kirklees has to go without. Reform is the first party in decades on this particular council who have a broad reach into all constituencies across the whole of Kirklees. So you can be guaranteed that my leadership will actually be driven by that compelling requirement to serve all the constituents. I know how to collaborate, bring people together. I've worked with executive stakeholders. I've worked in construction. I understand development. I understand local issues. I've done extensive campaigning. You know, the skills are not exhaustive, but it's not just about my skills. It's about the right questions that I ask. It's about engendering that collaboration amongst all of us. And that is where I excel and sing. And I hope to demonstrate this to you in the coming weeks and certainly before the next full council meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Cooper.
I've been a Kirklees councillor for 27 years and I first got elected in 1999 and I've been re-elected 6 times, and it tells you something if you've been re-elected. It tells you that actually you've not upset enough people, that you've actually done a reasonable job, and actually most of the time I've had pretty high majorities for the work I've done. And so that's important. And being a ward councillor means that you deal with people's everyday problems. And that's really useful in terms of how the council operates, because if the council's going wrong, if there are issues, if there are things which are not coming together, then as local ward councillors, we all have a role. We're all leaders in our own communities to say what's going wrong. And so that is an important part of that. I've been also a member of the Kirklees Cabinet. I was a Kirklees Cabinet member for 6 years. I was responsible for housing, Kirklees Council housing and property services at that time. And during that time we did some major insulation programmes to council housing, which I instigated. And later on, I influenced the budget of the then Conservative Council, where we put a programme in which insulated 50,000 private sector homes. And it was the first time in the UK that there had been a universally free insulation scheme. And so it's not just looking at how a council operates and being a manager of a council, it's being able to be innovative and see what we can do that is outside the norm, is outside the envelope, which uses the council's resources to make that difference. So the experience that I've had as a local councillor has been taken up by the Local Government Association, where I am a peer advisor there. And so I go into other councils around the country and provide help and advice and support to those councils, particularly when those councils are in difficult situations, particularly when they've got no overall control situations as well. So that's a role that I take to other councils, and there are benefits of that I can bring to this council. So I've been involved in putting forward successful motions to the council, successful amendments to the council, and having to work with across different groups to actually achieve a consensus.
10 seconds, Councillor Cooper.
To achieve a consensus to deliver real change. So I've got the background and the skills. I can do this job.
Councillor John Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Kirklees Council continues to face very significant financial pressures, with difficult decisions required in order to deliver a balanced budget. If appointed leader of the council, what specific savings, service changes or efficiencies would you be prepared to pursue? What areas would you like to prioritise for protection or investment? Furthermore, how would you reassure residents that your approach is financially credible and deliverable? Thank you.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Balancing the books at your home, making sure that the money you get in your payslip every month or every week or fortnightly or however anybody is paid, making sure you can pay your mortgage, making sure that you can afford to eat. There's no difference between that act of balancing the books and doing it at that micro level and doing it at a macro level. There's no difference. I've worked for corporate companies for many years, and everybody has the same method. They call it different things, etc., but it's the same thing. So essentially, the things that I would look for would be where we can reduce waste. For example, the Cooper Bridge roundabout, it started off at 70 million. It's now gone down to 53 million, which suggests that at some point somewhere someone decided that we needed 70 million, but then all of a sudden it didn't need to cost 23 million. So that suggests that the original scoping was incorrect, okay? So, you know, what that means is we're not doing our scoping properly for what we spend our money on, and we're not clear about whether or not it's going to cost a whopping 23 million extra from one time to another. So we get the scoping right. The next thing we do is we collaborate more with the outside world. We collaborate with developers, we collaborate with each other, we collaborate with people who are going to be subject to compulsory purchase orders on the land. And we speak to those people and we say, what would you do? It's your land. You've been the ambassador of this land for 20, 30, 40 years. And oftentimes, like as recently occurred at a place where I work, the landowner comes up with a much cheaper, much better, much more efficient way of doing things. So we need to plan better, we need to be smarter about what we do. We need to decide that even though we are the conduit of 69 wards, we don't know always what is right. We ask the right questions, we speak to the right people, we suspend our own personal agendas, and we start to work together so that we make efficient decisions. Other areas that I would prioritise, I would look at how we can create extra revenue streams, okay? We don't make bricks, we don't make cars, we don't make widgets, we don't provide services like buying coffees where you can increase business by franchising it and taking it across the world. What we do is we provide services for a fixed cost, okay? But there are
10
also
seconds, Councillor Wood.
How long?
10 seconds.
There are also opportunities for us to be creative and look at how can we actually also create revenue cleverly, creatively, by working with commercial developers. And these
That's
are the
3
things
minutes.
that I want to do.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Council budgets are not like they're very different. A council, yeah, I mean, they just simply aren't. Because there's ordinary inflation that councils have, the sort of thing that we have in terms of energy costs. You might expect employment costs, of course. The cost of employment will rise as well. But on top of all those things, we have an exponential rise in the demand for services that we have. And the biggest one of those is adult social care. And so there's a huge rise in those costs. In the last council budget, we had to get an additional £15 million to go into services just to stand still with that budget. Way above what we're doing. Way above what you would expect. £7.3 million worth of savings we had to get from last time's budget. That's £7.3 million of savings that we achieved, and that was a good year. So our demand is going like that. The amount of money that we've got to deliver it is simply not enough. Government does not provide us with what is necessary to do that. So councils aren't like homes. It is very different. One of the things that we really do need to do is make sure that we are applying for all the funding that we need to deliver the services and deliver the ambitions that we've got. One of the things that I raised with the then Labour administration was the fact that they didn't apply for funding from the Warm Homes Local Scheme. Millions of pounds worth of funding that could have helped Kirklees citizens and improve their homes and reduce their energy demand. And so it's not just things for Kirklees households, but it's looking at things that we can do in terms of partnerships with other organisations who can help us deliver our objectives and access funding that we can't. And that's a way of actually making sure that our money goes further and people still get services. So it is not like a household budget, and that's a fundamental mistake of anybody who's planning on running a council. It's not the same.
Thank you. Councillor Zaman.
Residents often hear about efficiency savings, yet frontline services continue to shrink. If you want to lead Kirklees Council, what specific cuts would you make to deliver real efficiencies without undermining essential services, ensuring scrutiny is strengthened, decisions are properly challenged, showing frontline services are genuinely being protected, ensuring these decisions are fair so that the impact of all savings does not fall on disproportionately on deprived communities, particularly disabled residents, carers, older people, or those already struggling to access services?
Councillor Cooper.
So the essential services, those are the things that I think. Okay. Right. If they're essential services, then they're not things that we want to cut. They wouldn't be in the front line, I think, of things that you want to look at. Any savings that are brought forward by officers in advance of a budget, you would want to look at those and look at the impacts of those on people. If officers are proposing to the administration how money should be, what services should be cut, you would want to see the impact of that. You would also want to see how you would mitigate those impacts, how you would maybe involve, as I mentioned earlier on, other organisations to help us deliver those services. So that's an approach. I think we'd also be wanting to speak to the people in those particular communities to see what their thoughts were on any proposals to actually reduce those services. So that's important. I'd want to be talking to councillors from all groups about their views about any cuts to those services that are there. And if it's something which affects people with protected characteristics, then it could be something we could be in breach of the Equalities Act. And so we want to make sure that nothing that we put forward is in breach of the Equalities Act and leaves the council open to legal challenge.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with some of what Councillor Cooper says, especially about the basic essential services. We also would not seek to cut those. Reform would be about the basics done right, and certainly that's what all of the people in all of Kirklees are definitely calling for. The question is how. You know, it's easy to say these things, but the truth is, how do you do that? And that's where Councillor Cooper and I disagree. Because where there are very big differences in the basic household budget and the council's budget, what I was pointing to was that you have to balance the books. If you don't have enough money coming in and you are putting out more money out than you need to run the basic services, then you can't balance the books. So what you need to do is work out what happens in the middle. What are the creative ways that you can make changes to still deliver the service in the budget that you have? I understand what Councillor Cooper was saying, that we should be applying for more funding, which is fine, and funding applications are great, but sometimes those funding applications are tied to criteria which the people in the chamber don't necessarily want to agree with to get the funds. And so we've got to be very careful with what we apply for funds for, because sometimes what that means is it sends us off down a specific path for how we actually use those funds. And we need to be free to serve our constituents. Actually, there's some really easy ways to do it, and a lot of it is about embracing new technology and thinking about the way our processes work from end to end. There's very simple maths in creating productivity. If you take less people to do things, if those people who you are going to have to do things, they take less time to do things, and they do it more efficiently with artificial intelligence, with use of better technology, with applications that work better, then you can save money. One of the things that you could simply do with fly tipping, for example, which is an essential service and has recently become particularly challenging in Kirklees. You know, one of the things that we can do is we can start to look at visualising where the fly tipping happens. Create a heat map. As soon as you have a heat map, you know where the big hotspots are. We've looked at the situation and we think there's about 50 heat map hotspots in the whole of Kirklees. So what you can do is you can erect cameras there. You know, the ones that you have on some of your old and disabled
10 seconds,
people's
Councillor
home.
Wood.
And then when it flags up, it can, for example, go to a parking attendant's phone. They press a button, it sends an instant message and it starts recording enforcement happens.
That's 3 minutes.
That's an idea that we could look into and explore.
Thank Councillor Anthony Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. On the 24th of March this year, the Council formally locked Kirklees into a binding new local plan timetable that will dictate our spatial strategy up to the year 2043. Under current planning rules, Kirklees faces a minimum baseline target to build 1,730 new homes every single year in that period, meaning this new plan must allocate land for roughly 26,000 homes over its lifetime. However, our official brownfield land register identifies room for fewer than 7,000 homes borough-wide, meaning brownfield land alone can only cover about 4 years of that target. Government planning inspectors have already formally ruled that Kirklees cannot meet its legal housing requirements without utilising green spaces. With the official call for sites closing this coming July and August, developers are actively bidding for land right now. If you are elected as leader, which choice are you making this August? Will you instruct officers to reject developer bids that include Kirklees Greenbelt sites? knowing it will mathematically break our 2043 targets and stall affordable housing? Or will you accept building on Greenbelt sites and tell us how much or which green spaces you are prepared to hand over to developers?
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
So we are faced with a huge dilemma. 1,730 homes. Last time we had records for building on building in Kirklees. I think there was 870 homes in 1 year, around that sort of level was what we built. So we're basically looking at the best part of 1,000 more homes that we normally build in Kirklees to achieve the government's target. Unachievable to do that. Now, the government's national target is 1.5 million homes. And so we are being asked to play our part in delivering something which is generally recognised as undeliverable nationally and undeliverable locally. And to being asked to sacrifice Greenbelt land to achieve that. So one of the things which is really infuriating, of course, is that there are 1.4 million homes in this country which have got planning permission but have not been built by developers. And so government is targeting councils telling us what to do when actually it's the developers who are land banking who are putting this pressure on us. So we really need to be going back to government and saying, look, not just ourselves, but with the local government association, with other councils, and saying, you are going to build on, you want us to allocate Greenbelt land and things that people value when you're not actually making the developers build a home. So they are placing us in a difficult position. If we actually have to, if we don't have a local plan, which fits the rules that the government give us, if we don't have that plan, then developers will be able to come to this council and say, I want to build on there. That puts all Greenbelt land under threat. So we are stuck between a rock and a hard place. There is no easy answer to this question. But what we've got to do as a council is stand up to government. We've got to go back to them and say, think again, look at the developers. Those are the people who need to build the homes that they've already been allocated, and leave our Greenbelt land alone.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We find absolute agreement in something, which is marvellous. Leave our Greenbelt alone. It is the heritage of our great country, our beautiful rolling hills. You know, this is something surely we all agree on. But I'm not totally sure why we should be going back and pressing government. Why are we not going back and pressing developers? Why are we allowing developers to tell us what to do? Why are we allowing the construction industry to lead on what to do? I've worked extensively in the construction industry, extensively with planning, extensively with developers. The truth is that the housing industry and the people who lay down the houses, they can build the houses for less money. Their shareholders are squeezing us out of ridiculous margins. Margins on the bricks, margins on concrete, margins on I-beams for cross-sections in houses, margins on roofing tiles. There is so much margin in what they do, and that's what we need to press on. We need to get talent in the council from the private sector who know how to push hard on contracts with developers. We have people who know how to do that in our teams, so that means we can ask the right questions. We can work with you to know what the right questions are for you, and that's where we would look at doing that. At the moment, there is a massive surge in the housing industry and the building industry for modular building. This is no longer going to be, you know, Jack the mate with his trowel and whatever, laying all of the bricks. We're not doing that anymore. We're doing brick slips, which are actually attached onto specific fixings which get bolted onto concrete infrastructure. Quick, easy. Look at Kirkstall. Around over the bridge on Kirkstall, they've got a brand new sustainable housing field there. They've built those houses in 3 months. The whole estate, fully sustainable, fully equipped with solar panels. We have to get a bit more brave and a bit more courageous about how we deal with the private sector. You have an opportunity to harness what we know. There are some amazing skills on this team behind me. Use us.
Thank you. Councillor Charles Greaves.
Thank you, Mayor. What do you see as the key issues and implications from the fair funding settlement, and what will you do about it?
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
I don't know what the fair funding settlement is, so I wouldn't be able to answer this fully. Unless someone is willing to furnish me with that information, then I would sit down and then cede to Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. Is any...
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Fair funding settlement was brought in by government across local government last year. For Kirklees, this meant that we had £14 million of additional unring-fenced funding. And the fair funding formula is about basically equalising, taking account of demographic information about poverty, those sort of issues that mean that councils like Kirklees get a better settlement than we have in the past. So the issue with fair funding is that fair funding is not necessarily sufficient funding. Fair funding, just to give you an idea, £14 million, a lot of money, very helpful. But last year, we had an additional £15 million put into adult social care to meet some of the demand that we've got. Now, in 1 year, that £14 million that we got has been negated effectively. So though we may have rebalanced across local government how funding has been allocated, it doesn't mean that we've got adequate funding. It may be fair, but it does not meet need. And so we have to go back to national government. We've got to go through the local government association and say that it's not over, effectively. Though certainly the funding settlement last year was better than we've had for a heck of a long time, it's not taken away issues like funding adult social care. Now, if government dealt with adult social care instead of kicking it into the long grass with this review that's not going to be dealt with until the next Parliament, then that would could make a huge change to how local government is financed. Because solving, if you like, maybe taking adult social care into the NHS or funding it directly through central government would transform how local government finance operates away from the very difficult approach that we've got at the moment. So fair funding is important, it's helpful, but it's not the full answer to the question.
Thank you. Councillor Darwan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What is the one measurable change residents would see within 2 years if either one of you became the leader? I'm asking for one.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
One of the things I'd want to do immediately if I became leader was really place a highlight on the services that the council operates. Because one of the things that I'm sure we've all heard here is from people is I pay me council tax and all I get is my bins emptied. And people simply do not understand or know what this council does, and it does so much. I mentioned at our last meeting about adult social care and the very how grateful my family is for the care that my dad has received via Kirklees. We've obviously, there's highways, there's food standards, there's children's services helping children with very complex needs. And so what I would want to do is place a real highlight on that and promote the work that the council does so people understand the value of actually paying their council tax and seeing what it is that it brings and seeing what it might, it might be their bin now, but in the future it could be their parents receiving care. It could be any number of things. It could be somebody they know getting housing, or a landlord being forced to put repairs to properties because a Kirklees member of staff has put pressure on them to get those repairs done. It could be environmental health, where they're dealing with noise and pollution, noise pollution issues. So I think one thing that leadership of this council would be is to show what we do, because I think leaders in the past simply haven't done that. They've been people who sat behind desks and not actually stood up for the workers who do brilliant work for this council and for this community. And we should be proud of those staff, we should be proud of those workers, and we should make sure that they're seen for the great work that they've done.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Darwin, this is my favourite question. And I know what I want to say to you and the rest of the chamber. My challenge is how to make it measurable. I'm all about data. I'm all about things that you can measure. I've worked in an industry where results have to be measured. I've worked in an industry where a £790 million of debt, we wouldn't ever get there. But they're very logical, pragmatic things. One of the things that I believe that actually leads to those things is it's not about necessarily how many pounds you spend or how much how much less you spend on adult services. They are the outcomes of the culture that you create. And from my perspective, and I've said this right from the moment that I stepped in this chamber, and one thing I've done is never varied from it, and I promise you that I won't. What the residents would see, the one thing they would see, is they would see, finally, in a council, cross-party councillors working together across ward boundaries. That's what they would see. That is my commitment. That is my pledge. That is what I want to see. It doesn't make sense to me, and clearly doesn't make sense ever to the CEO and his hierarchy and his workforce, why we can never agree on the basics done right. If we do not agree, then their job is harder because they don't have scope. The requirements are always changing. The specifications can't be planned 18 months ahead. How would they ever have a chance in creating a real delivered result? The problem is us. We have to find a way to change the culture, work together, suspend our differences and pull in the same direction. It must be possible, and I refuse to believe that it's not.
Thank you. Councillor Butterworth.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Due to the current economic climate and the increase in financial strain being placed on councils to meet the needs of residents, should any town or village within Kirklees, or indeed the borough as a whole, be made an authority of sanctuary?
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What is on everybody's lips in the world at the moment? What is on everybody's lips in the country at the moment? What is on everybody's lips in the community at the moment? What's on everybody's lips in our families at the moment? We can't meet some of our basic living standards. The government is talking about capping specific foods, rations from World War II. Due to the economic current climate and the increasing financial strain, balancing costs and essential services for residents should always be the priority, fundamentally. Otherwise, how can we deliver on the last question? And the last question, basics done right. Have you ever heard the saying, put your own oxygen mask on first before you help others? In order for us to be the caring society community, Kirklees, that we already are, we must sustain our ability to keep ourselves fundamentally afloat. The UK has a proud history of providing sanctuary for those fleeing persecution, and Kirklees has always been a welcoming place for those wishing to find safety and a new life. It's in our DNA. We've been looking after people for centuries, decades. We would not look to sign up to any new subscriptions that could potentially change the openness that Kirklees has always provided. Let's get together as a team and sustain what we already have and make up our own rules.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper?
Sure. I guess the most important thing to say, because you were saying that being a town or city sanctuary would have an impact on costs for a council. Now, it doesn't, because those costs are met by national government. So it's not actually on the council's books. It's still paid for by taxpayers, but but it isn't actually local government finance. So I think that's something that's important to understand if you think it's going to impact on council services. So one of the issues that, I've heard the thing about us being a welcoming place. Actually, the divisive rhetoric around asylum seekers that we've seen from certain areas has been one that has spilled over into communities that have been here for generations. And it's had a negative impact on those communities and made them feel at risk. And sometimes with good cause as well. So I think we've got to be really careful about how we approach this whole issue. One of the things that happens in other countries around the world is when you have asylum seekers who come to the country, they allow them to work. And in fact, as soon as they come into the country, they say, congratulations, you've got a job. You're not reliant on the state. You can not have to work illegally in some dodgy shop somewhere. You've got a job. You can go out and do some work. And in fact, some of the people I've spoken to who are asylum seekers have actually worked in health services in their own country as professionals and are not allowed to work in this country. Crazy. When we've got shortages of people to do work in the care sector, in the health sector. We've got hundreds of thousands of jobs that are vacant in this country, and yet we are not actually using a resource that's there, and instead spending millions on keeping them in accommodation where they could find their own accommodation elsewhere. So it's not their fault that they're actually in receipt of benefits. It's not, and actually quite small benefits compared with what we get locally. It's not their fault that they find themselves in hotels with some morons actually going around harassing them. And so I think we've really got to change the entire rhetoric on this and make sure that, get rid of that and actually look at practical solutions to the issue.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Bolt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And could I thank you for allowing this hustings, which we asked for before. I'm sure both within the Chamber and within the community, the public will be seeing the benefit of this discussion. Thank you. To those in the community who say we come in here with a closed mind, I can assure you that many don't. And I, Madam Mayor, am taking information from as many various sources. I'm even reading the Socialist Worker today to try and gain some insight into the process.
Can we get to the question, please?
I do, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Given that no party holds an overall majority on Kirklees Council, effective leadership will depend on genuine cross-party cooperation rather than administration by default. What concrete steps have you taken since the election to engage and secure the confidence of other political groups, and how would you ensure that all parties are meaningfully involved in decision-making rather than simply being consulted after decisions have already been made? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Well, I've been actively speaking to a number of groups on this council, and that's the reason I guess we're here, isn't it? That 31 councillors backed my bid to be leader of this council against 29 from Reform, and that's why we're in this position. And so the support that I've secured, along with my colleagues from the Independents, from the Liberal Democrats, is one which commands not just more votes in this chamber, but actually it represents more of the electorate than Reform does. Reform have got 42% of the councillors in this council chamber, but 30% of the votes in the community. They're overrepresented. You are overrepresented in this council chamber according to the votes that you've received. The votes that we got across the groups is much higher than that. And so if we better reflect the views of Kirklees electors. So we have talked together about ideas that we can do to take the council forward, and we've got a strong claim, I think, to take this on. So we are not, as some people have said, ignoring the mandate of voters. If anything, we are completely and utterly respecting the mandate of voters and reflecting that in our actions here. So that is why I think we have the strongest claim to run this council, because we are working together. We hear about talk about working together. We're actually doing it. And that's why we're proudly standing here today to offer an alternative leadership to the council that Reform offer.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What did Deming say, a quality guru who was responsible for the rise of the Ford Motor Company? There's lies, lies, damn lies, and then there's statistics. Thank you, Madam Mayor. There have been some statistics banded around over the last week. One that we have only 30% of the vote, but that means that 70% of people didn't vote for us. Councillor Cooper used that as a way to justify why he had a mandate. So let's just follow that through, Councillor Cooper. Using that same analogy, you got 18% of the vote, and that means that 82% of people didn't vote for you, and so that means that you have even less of a mandate to control this council. I don't think that the Kirklees residents would agree that we are overrepresented on this council. It's certainly not what we're being told canvassing, which we are now continuing with our eyes on the next election in May 2027. We are absolutely clear that we are here, and we are worthy, and we are ready, and we are willing, and we will continue to put that out to every single one of the councillors in this chamber. We will not be deterred, and we will continue to offer you our best face, our best side, our best negotiation. And what I would say is, so far what we've been trying to do, attempting to do, is to listen to the group leaders of this chamber. And there are only a subsection of those people who would actually even talk to us. But we did listen. One of those group leaders spoke at length to me how he'd spent the last 20-odd years hearing the promises that he was made every year at the annual council, but only to feel that frustration when he saw them ebbing away over every turn. So we won't do that. We're telling you we won't do that. We're focusing on the things that we need to do to create collaboration. You have no reason not to trust us because you don't know us yet. We haven't had 27 years in this chamber. You don't know what the ways of working of us are. Test us. We offer you the opportunity to test us. And we also offer you the opportunity that when you don't get what you want, to scrutinise us, to come back to us, to say, look, we didn't like that. Can we talk some more? We will continue to engage even when no one reciprocates. We have mixed wards here, particularly mixed council wards in terms of
10 seconds, Councillor Wood.
We have a demand from our constituents to work together with those mixed wards. We will do what they tell us to do.
Thank you. Councillor Vickers. Councillor Vickers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. How does the future administration plan to support children with special educational needs and disabilities? And does this plan include support for their families who spend such a large part of their lives fighting for their children?
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Evidence shows that Dewsbury, Batley and Newsom have some of the highest levels of deprivation and inequalities for children in Kirklees. Often where there are inequalities and deprivation, that actually turns up in the children of those communities with special educational needs and often disabilities. There is a known correlation between deprivation and children with disabilities and also special educational needs. We would look at expanding access to universal early years healthcare, mitigating essential household costs and guaranteeing equitable access to healthcare and nutrition. Intervening during the first 1,000 days, and I remember the first 1,000 days of my son's life. It was joyous, but not all children in all of our communities in Kirklees have the same ability and access to education, to funds, to education, etc., than my son did. And so we would look at, okay, where is the biggest deprivation and what funding can we put there? From conception to a child's second birthday is proven to be the most cost-effective and impactful way to reduce systemic inequalities. Alongside this, we'd look at to invest in community hubs. We have a lot of unused assets in Kirklees. So we don't need to buy more assets, we can utilise the ones that we've got and get creative. It provides families with a single point of access to health visitors, mental health services and parenting classes. Oftentimes people with special educational needs, they need support. There are so many people that I have looked after during the campaign and well beyond over the last 2 years in support with special educational needs and how to get what they need from the council. Equally important is removing the stigma around poverty so that all children feel included no matter what their background. That links into all councillors' pledge to be corporate parents and aligns with Reform's tenets of family, community and country. It's why we have those values. We are aware, for example, Newsom Ward has experienced worrying trends in regard to child poverty with an estimated 35% of children living in those income-deprived households. Work with us, help us to understand where the need is in your areas, and we will collaborate with you.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
The question was about special educational needs and SEND provision. I mean, one of the things we often find when we're looking at families who've got children with special educational needs is that they have huge difficulties in being able to get the support for their children that they need. And a lot of the frustration that those families feel in Kirklees is difficulties in communication. Difficulties in communication with Kirklees and difficulties in communication with the schools. And so there's some real, those are the things that it's not just the money, it's not just the provision, it's that. And so what often happens is because of that difficulty, parents sometimes find it just too much and the system breaks them and defeats them. Not all parents find that. Some parents will persevere and spend a good portion of their lives fighting for the services that their children need from the council, getting the educational health and care plan, the HCP, and trying to get a better outcome for their kids and getting the services that they do. One of the problems that we've got is governments put forward the SEND white paper to try and improve things in SEND, but it is going to take a long time for some of the provisions that are in there to have effect. Because you need specialists like educational psychologists, you need specialists like speech therapists to take on that work, and it can take 5 or 6 years to actually train a speech therapist or an educational psychologist. So that's a real concern, and so it will be way beyond this coming Parliament before any of the changes that they're talking about will come into effect. In the meantime, they're talking about making all teachers SENCOs, special educational need coordinators, but that's putting more pressure on teachers. Who've already overloaded, and so that's going to have a knock-on effect on the rest of the teaching profession. So the most important thing that councils can do at this stage, I think, is looking at the communications and making sure that we are doing our communications right with families and they feel listened to, and they are listened to, and that as a result of that, their children get a better service.
Thank you. That last question has taken us up to the hour, but we will continue for another hour to enable colleagues... Sorry, half an hour to enable colleagues to ask... I know. To enable colleagues to ask further questions. Yeah? So, Councillor Mark Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What have you done to break the deadlock in this current leadership appointment?
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Well, I've suggested, others have suggested a head-to-head. So we actually look at suspending standing orders and see who gets the most votes in the contest to see if we can do that to address this. I think we've given a good case, I think, to say that we have a legitimate claim to run this council, and a stronger claim than reform to run this council. The fact that we are actually in deadlock demonstrates that you do not have a mandate, as you've said, that you do have 30% of the vote. I admit I've got 18% of the vote with my colleagues here, but together with our supporters, we've got much more than that, and much more than reform. So we've suggested ways to break the deadlock, but those have been turned down by yourselves and by the Conservatives.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
I'm not sure what Kirklees residents would think about the suspension of council procedure rules, because we identified that in doing so we could change the voting rules and thereby everyone could, what was it that Councillor Ridgway said? Go home happy. We wouldn't have gone home happy. Our voters wouldn't have seen us go home happy. It wouldn't have reflected the huge mandate that we have as a reform group here with 29 people on this council. We also think that we'd like to choose ways which don't take us in a situation head-to-head or in a battle or locking horns. What we want to do, and I will not apologise for repeating this over and over, we want to collaborate, because long after we choose the leader for this council, we have to keep those agreements for the term of the council. And I'm not sure anyone here thinks that that's going to happen after we've chosen an administration. You know, in the adjournment for the side rooms, there were group leaders who said, well, we all know we're not going to be able to keep up to this and there's going to be fragmentation later. That's not sustainable. It's not something that will help the Kirklees residents. I've met with group leaders in nearly all the cases we attempted to come to a suitable arrangement. They told us what we want. In nearly all cases, we offered them everything that they wanted. We offered support on the Section 106 funding. We offered the councillors who were looking originally for the chairs that they wanted, we offered them. We offered support for independents who had difficulties over terms, over years, an open door if I was the leadership of the council. A monthly, one-to-one, with a topic of their choice on the agenda, committed to for the entirety of at least my term. We continue to bring our noble selves, even in the face of unacceptable responses. We sat through name-calling in the mail-making ceremony. We read responses in the press which were not congruent with the conversations that we'd had. It's a shame. Because...
Which point of order? Which order, please?
Room 21.3, coinciding with the conduct, and together this present obligations under the Code of Conduct. No one's approached us, no one's reached out to us.
Do I get
Councillor Wood, would you carry on, please?
Point of first explanation. This is a continuation of the meeting of last week, when you remember that I chaired the election of you as mayor. There was no name-calling or barracking when I chaired that meeting. It was an extremely... The subsequent part of the meeting, when we came in here, is not the mayor-making. It is a political or a council meeting. Also, Madam Mayor, no point of explanation. When I spoke, I asked candidates about leadership. Both of them have referred to suspension of standing orders. Could I refer them to the agenda, which says the leader of the council is elected in accordance with Article 7 of the Constitution, and Article 7 does talk about the election. If they care to acquaint themselves with it, the Constitution says the articles of this Constitution may not be suspended. The election of leader is part of the Constitution, it is not part of the standing orders, and therefore talking of suspension of standing orders is erroneous. This is dealt with in the Constitution, not the Council procedure rules.
Thank you. Councillor Wood, would you like to continue? Please continue.
So I actually spoke at length on the phone with Councillor Zaman, who, if I'm confused, I did think that she was the leader of your group, councillor. Is that not true?
That is true.
So I have spoken to Councillor Zaman. My chief whip has approached everybody on multiple occasions and people don't want to talk to us. Actually, I'm very grateful for today. I'm grateful for Councillor Bolt because he was originally the person who suggested a hustings. And I have got more valuable information from this time in this chamber than I have for the last week and a half, 10 days. And it's great because now I know what you want. Now I know what things are important to you because I can look at the questions that you're asking. I've been avidly scratching them down on my paper so that I can make sure I have that information. It's valuable to me. Just to respond to the point of order, there is actually no such thing as standing orders in this council. They are actually called council procedural rules. And I have confirmed this with both the Chief Executive Officer, the Legal Officer and the Monitoring Officer. Maybe we can have a conversation of this outside this room. So can someone remind me where we actually are at the moment? Because I'm a bit sort of lost.
Point of order. Madam Mayor, the councillor under Section 21 of the Constitution
while a member is speaking to other members, shall remain silent.
Thank you. Councillor Wood. Councillor Wood, just please. Have you done? Yeah. Would you?
Yes, I am complete. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Councillor Bramwell.
Sorry. Sorry. First of all, Madam Mayor, I just want to take this opportunity to apologise for my outburst last week. It was your first meeting chairing, and it's not my first time being a councillor, and I should set a precedent, so thank you.
It's fine, thank you.
So my question is to both proposed leaders. We've heard a lot of talk today about wanting to communicate, wanting to collaborate. It's very easy to sit here and talk and talk and talk and say what you want to do, but I've not actually seen that demonstrated whatsoever. So my question is, my ward sits within North Kirklees. Now, the social needs in North Kirklees are heightening every single year. Cost of living, poverty, lack of youth services, social housing crisis, homelessness, you name it, we've got it. What are you going to do? And if you, your councillors take cabinet, what are you guys going to do to make sure that you educate yourselves appropriately on these social needs so you can tackle them and reach a positive solution?
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
We'll come and see you and talk to you. Also, we have reached out on a number of occasions, but communication requires both sides to be active participants. And what we've experienced is that we are the only ones who've been reaching out.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Hi, Tanisha. I think one of the most important things you mentioned about cost of living, and we've got a new council's anti-poverty strategy which is going to be refreshed and reviewed, and I think that's overdue, and I think we could do a lot with that. I think there's a lot of opportunities there to make a difference to all the communities that people represent here, because sometimes poverty is in very rich communities, and sometimes poverty is in the places you would normally expect. And so I think one of the things I want to do directly with people like yourself and all members in the chamber is to look at how we can best target an anti-poverty strategy in the area that you represent, to reach the people who are sometimes the hardest to reach. Some of those people may be elderly people living in a big house, which is worth millions, but that their own funds have depreciated away. So there'll be other people who live in very poor housing, who are on extremely low incomes. And so I'd like to see how we best deliver benefits advice to those households and use councillors themselves as a conduit to say how we do that. One of the things I do know is that benefits advice can make a huge difference to householders, and sometimes with that level of support, thousands of pounds can go into communities, and that not just help those people, it helps the local community around them, because it means more money is going into that community. It also helps the council, because if we've got people on benefits registered, it means that the council qualifies for more money from central government as well. So putting money into that sort of support and that sort of advice to help the most vulnerable people in the community is not just good for them, it's good for the council as a whole and the council's finances. But to make that effective, it's that relationship with councillors across the piece which would make that difference. And that's why I would like to make the opportunity and reach out to all members in the chamber to make sure that they're all involved in making sure that the council's anti-poverty strategy is a huge success.
Thank you. Councillor Sheard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whoever takes the seat of leader of this council, whoever is in the cabinet, my residents back in Bursell and Berkshire are going to be affected by it. Residents want to know who can actually govern, not just win headlines or the popular opinion on social media. Given the financial difficulties this council has faced over the last couple of years under the previous administration, fractured council numbers across all parties right now, and the loss of public trust throughout politics from Kirklees down to Westminster, what evidence is there that either of your groups has the competence, the experience and the stability to run Kirklees effectively rather than just becoming yet another short-lived political experiment? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I don't know the actual point of order yet, but I think there is one which basically says that in a debate, a topic may not be approached twice, and I do believe our competence has already been questioned. Apologies that I don't lay my hands on the exact point of order.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Politics has changed, and this council chamber is a reflection of that change. And some of that change is because of things that have happened at a national level, and some of that change is about things which have happened at a local level. I think I'm confident in saying that the support that the Green Party have received is due to the local work and the support the independents have done is outside the normal national political mainstream a lot of the time. And so our support is gained from the action that we've done on the ground. And we think that's a solid foundation on which to build an administration, not one which can change necessarily with the fluctuations in opinion polls. So in terms of competence and experience that you mentioned, my record, if you like, stands for itself in that I've been a member of this chamber for a good number of years, but also been involved in the administration of these councils. I've worked across council groups. I've got budget amendments passed, sometimes with the Conservatives even a long time ago. Yeah, I got a bit of stick for that, I seem to remember at the time. So I'm willing to absolutely work across party to deliver objectives. In terms of fractured, I'm not seeing a lot of fractured here. In terms of the Greens, in terms of the independents, our work, we're not fractured. We're solid, we're strong, and we will deliver a great administration to this council. So you can have public trust. We command a lot of support from the electorate combined, which is greater than the support that has been secured by Reform UK. And that is why we'll be able to put forward a united administration which will live up to the expectations that people have placed on us at the local elections.
Thank you. Would you like to add that, Councillor Wood?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We do keep going back to this concept of experience, and I would like to just talk a little bit about that concept of experience. As we all know, there are 69 members of this chamber, and currently 43 of them are new. That means that there are 22 members in this chamber who have experience. There are 29 of us who don't have the experience that those 22 members have. However, there are a number of other inexperienced councillors where this is also their first term and they are not in this party. So I would respectfully suggest, Councillor Cooper, that this is not all about your experience. It's actually about the experience of all 69 councillors in this chamber. So I go back again, not to labour the point or have a record that's a little bit stuck, to the collaboration. It is indeed true that once the Cabinet is elected, that we work directly with the executive team to shape the policies and to create the strategic plan for Kirklees Council, but we don't do that on our own. We are 29, which means there are a whopping 40 other councillors who should be holding us to account on standards, on scrutiny, and all of the other committees that you will be sitting on if you do collaborate with this group. So it's not just the Cabinet's job to run this council, to deliver services and deliver competence, it's everybody's. And I would defer to the fact that we should be a team.
Thank you. Councillor Anwar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is to both leaders. The previous Labour administration agreed a budget of £396 million. And for the last 14 years, there has been a divide between North and South Kirklees, where North has only received 30% of the budget, which resulted in us losing our sports centre, and it also resulted in running out of burial land space in Dewsbury. My residents have to now bury their loved ones in neighbouring towns of Heckmondwike and Batley. It was committed 5 years ago, £500,000 to do research on finding burial land. I myself and other officers have been in regular in touch with each other, and I've shown them land that I believe is usable for burial land, but I keep on getting told it's not feasible, it's not doable. So can the leader of the Reform Party and the Green Party give some commitment and assurance to my residents in Dewsbury and Batley, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Appropriate burial space for our loved ones is an absolute red line for us. I have attended many funerals of people who I love, and this is something that comes to everyone in our lifetime. It is a common theme in the human race that not only do we all live, we also currently all die. No matter the culture of the person burying loved ones, we should all honour this as absolute red line, something that is a basic human right. I have had the pleasure of working with many different cultures in my life, and one of the most wonderful parts of any culture that I've experienced is this concept of the tomb sweeping day in the Chinese culture. It is usual that bank holidays are often shared across cultures, but they're called something slightly different. So it's very common for Harvest Festival, for example, to be commonly shared across other cultures and religions. But Tomb Sweeping Day, I've never seen cross-culture. And Tomb Sweeping Day is the opportunity for everyone to be off work, and what they do is they go to the graves of their loved ones and they tend them. And if they find a grave that is untended, which we often find, then they tend the graves of those. And that is the ethic and the essence which, for me, we are talking about. Looking after everybody's burial, cremation, whatever it is that your culture subscribes to. In terms of how do we do that, it goes back to how I answered the last question. You know, it really, everything links together. We have a budget of 396 million, but a debt of 790 million. You know, we're over the 50% tipping point, and that's really worrying. I know that this council has done a lot to create a situation where we're no longer in crisis mode, but we shouldn't rest on our laurels. I go back to this thing. We need to agree what are the things which we consider important, create them as important together, and then look, how do we fund it? What do we do? Creative ideas, work together. We are more than just the sum of our parts, and we can create more if we're all pulling in the same direction with efficiencies, productivities, quick decisions, early planning, etc. That's how I would look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Councillor Anwar asked specific questions about what we do. You mentioned Dewsbury Sports Centre, you mentioned burial space, and so I think you need more than words, you need proposals as to what would happen. One of the things I've said before is that I believe there ought to be a Cabinet Advisory Committee on the future of Dewsbury Sports Centre. and that Dewsbury members ought to be part of that. And so they would be involved right from the outset and have ownership over how we address the problem, and that it wouldn't be something that's presented to you, but something that you've actually helped formulate. And so that Cabinet Advisory Committee is something that is real. It's not words, it's something that we want to make sure happens. Similarly with the burial space stuff, I think we need a working group on burial space, of which members would be a part of, linking with some of the organisations who look after burials within the North Kirklees community. And so that working group would be something where we would make sure that, again, as with the Cabinet Advisory Committee, that you were in the driving seat of making those things happen. I think it's, we can say nice words about stuff, but actually it's the practical things that you're going to do that is most important. And so those are the things that I'd look at. The wider issues about North and South Kirklees, I think the important thing there is to look at, I think look at some of the regeneration projects that are happening and seeing if they're actually doing for you what we needs to happen. Because you can put the money in bricks and mortar, but it's the things around it that are often most important. Is it helping local businesses be established? Is it helping generate more money within the local economy? Is it making places people want to go to is important. And so I think we need to look again at beyond the bricks and mortar and look at what it is we're actually providing for those communities. Are we actually providing things that people value, that people need, that people want?
Thank you. Councillor Floyd. Councillor Floyd. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the Constitution was originally written in 1974, with regular amendments due to legislative and governance reform, do you agree it should be read collectively by the Leader and Cabinet and changed, as confirmed, permissible by Mr Mawson at the induction when questioned by myself? Changes that would not only meet the legal requirements, but also the changes requested by modern society and particularly the larger mandate of the electorate here in Kirklees. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Of course, the Constitution has changed lots, and I think what you're actually asking here is, well, can the Constitution be changed so you can win this you actually run the council? That seems to be what you're saying, that you have a larger mandate. Well, you have a larger vote than the other parties, but that's not a majority. You have more councillors than other groups, but that's not a majority. So the Constitution won't change that. The electorate have decided the makeup of this council chamber, and so the Constitution is unhelpful for you in this, and I don't think there's a way you can change it to give yourself power.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was confused by Councillor Cooper's response. I did not interpret the question in the same way. Councillor Cooper suggested that Councillor Floyd was wanting to change the Constitution in order to elevate ourselves to the administration. I think it was a broader question. I think it was a question that focused very specifically on making sure that changes requested by modern society in particular and the larger mandate of the electorate here in Kirklees could be reflected in the Constitution. That is something that we may do regardless of whether we are elected. I am elected leader of the council. In fact, we've already started that. And we're working with various people in the Heckman White Ward, people who have been in this council chamber, who've been heavily involved already in the constitutional working groups that the monitoring officer already runs. And has let us know the things that have got progress, the things that have met resistance, why they've met resistance. And again, I am such a stuck record. We should do that together. The Constitution is ours. And by the very nature of the fact that we represent the people in our wards, the Constitution is actually the Kirklees residents. That's who it belongs to. And so, you know, one thing that we could do and we should do is take data from Kirklees. You know, do you know what the Constitution is? Do you understand it? Do you understand what the legislation is underpinned by? Do you understand what the bits of the Constitution mean and how they actually directly impact your lives? What would you like to change? What are the things in your areas that aren't working? Show them why the Constitution either accepts or denies that, the hurdles that they face. People don't just want elected representatives who will just sit and do what they do and then get elected again. They want engagement. They want to be heard. They want a conduit. Elections can be managed. We can use the voting rules. We can use the numbers in the chamber. But can we create an end-to-end relationship between all the Kirklees residents in Kirklees area that goes all the way up to the superb, best-in-class teamwork of all 69 councillors here to provide a way that this man can deliver on the services that the Kirklees residents want? That's my question.
Thank you. That was the last of the questions. So thank you all for your contributions. We'll now take a break until 7:30 and then we will return to the vote. Each group has got a breakout room. Reform group are in the old courtroom. The Green group are in meeting room 3. The Independents are in meeting room 2. The Conservative group are in meeting room 1. The Lib Dems are in meeting room 4. And the Home Valley Norths are in Patents Library. So thank you. Councillor Smith.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I rise in respect of the upcoming vote to elect a leader. And given that we've had 2 failed attempts already, and the Constitution, I believe, allows, I would like to propose that we elect a leader by ballot.
Thank you. Councillor Greaves?
35.
We've got 5. Thank you. I'm going to hand over to the Governance Officer now, Lee Webb.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for clarity, I'll just explain how we're going to actually conduct this ballot. It's not something we do on a regular basis. So how it's going to work, the voting will be actually in line with how you would have voted had we not had the ballot. So there's going to be separate votes. So there'll be an initial ballot vote for Councillor Cooper, and members will be asked to indicate on the ballot paper for, against, abstain. And then we'll come back, once that vote's completed, we'll come back and we'll complete the same process for Councillor Wood. We will count the votes together. We're going to work out that we're going to actually conduct the ballot in the hospitality room. Members voting will go in through the Mayor's Parlour, so there'll be a governance officer outside who will explain where you go. So it'll be into the Mayor's Parlour, vote, put your vote in the ballot box, which will be in the hospitality room, and then back into the chamber. Once we've done that for both candidates, the Mayor will read the numerical result out, and we will go from there. Just while the ballot's taking place, I understand the Mayor's going to adjourn the meeting while we do that. Okay, thank you.
Right, thank you for that, everybody. I'll read out the results from that vote. So Councillor Cooper, 29 for, 37 against. Councillor Wood, 29 for, 35 against and 2 abstentions. As the Council has been unable to determine the role of leader, we will revisit this item at the next Council meeting on the 15th of July. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Excuse me, everybody. One conversation. Thank you.
May I ask a question of the Chair? Who will assume executive power at this point?
I'll bring the Chief Exec in. Thank you.
So, under Article 7.91, as the Council has not elected a Mayor, I will assume the role of being able to make decisions on behalf of the leader. As part of the Constitution 7.91, I will consult with group leaders if I am about to make an executive decision on behalf of the leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 12,
Could I just point out for the purpose of the meeting that the question that Councillor Wood has just asked, I believe was covered in a letter dated the 22nd of May sent to all councillors by the Chief Executive. I believe that answer and information, it's a 3-page letter, and I know there's a lot of words on it, but it was circulated well in advance, so everybody's had the answer to the question.
Thank you, Councillor Bolt. Item 12, appointment of members to joint authorities. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That the recommendations are set on pages 29 to 30 of the report be approved.
Thank you. Councillor Lee Richards. Is that seconded?
I second and reserve the right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Are there any comments on this matter? Right of reply, Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No comments at this time.
Thank you. We will vote by show of hands. If you'd like to vote now.
Oh, those yes. Those for yes.
Yeah.
Those for yes.
Those for yes. Those for yes?
Those for yes. Yes.
Yeah.
We get it.
Yeah.
No's and abstention.
Any no's? Any no's? Any abstentions? That's items carried. Sorry. Item 13, appointments to outside bodies and other committees. Please note that in relation to the Yorkshire Purchasing Organisation Management Committee, Council is asked to agree to waive political balance rules which apply in accordance with Section 17 of the Local Government and Housing Act 1989. This means if anyone votes against this, it will not be approved. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That the recommendations are set out on page 35 be approved.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
Second and reserve the right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any comments, Councillor Clayton? Anybody?
No comment at this time.
Thank you. We will vote by show of hands. Those for yes? Thank you. No? Anybody? And any abstentions? No. That is carried. Thank you. Spokespersons of joint committees and external bodies. This is the appointment of spokespersons on joint committees and external bodies to reply to oral questions at council meetings. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That the recommendations are set out at page 43 be approved.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
Second and reserve the right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any comments on this matter? Councillor Bolt.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For the purpose of consistency in the council chamber, could I draw to members, and particularly new members' attention, that we elect a spokesperson from Kirklees Active Leisure to speak at the council meeting on behalf of that body. We've had legal advice over the years, when Councillor Sokol was the spokesman, that said he couldn't speak in public about matters of the Kirklees Active Leisure charity. Therefore, we've had this situation ongoing for several years where we've had a spokesman who can't speak. In that case, Madam Mayor, I would propose that we delete this spokesperson responsibility. There are two people who sit on it, one's a spokesperson usually, but what's the point of us electing somebody who then we ask questions in the council chamber, who then turns around, as we've had on numerous occasions, says, sorry, I can't speak, I've been told I'm legally bound to not to do.
Thank you, Councillor Bolt. I'm just going to bring the Chief Exec in on that one.
Councillor Bolt raises a very valid point. We will make sure in the training of those new representatives they understand the full role that they are undertaking, both to represent the council at the boards and to be spokesperson in this chamber. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to the vote on this by show of hands. Those for yes? Thank you. Those for no? Any abstentions? That's a no. That's carried. Item 15 is appointment of chairs of committees, boards and panels. The schedule of proposed chairs and lead members has been circulated. We should all have that on your desks now. We will now take a vote in regards to the remaining committees and panels if there are more than 2 persons nominated for any appointment to be filled and there is no overall majority in favour of one person, the following procedure will apply. The name of the person or persons, if equal, who has received the least number of votes will be struck off the list of nominations and a fresh vote will be taken. This procedure will continue until a majority vote is given in support of one of the persons nominated. Councillor Pinnock.
Can I ask the same question as I asked at the first start of, of our annual meeting last Wednesday? Is that some chairs of committees are dependent on who is the leader of the council. So, for instance, Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee has to be from a party that does not form the leader in cabinet, and as does Corporate Audit and Governance Committee. So I welcome the views of as to whether or not we're going to be voting for them.
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock. Can I bring Lee Webb in, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Pinnock is correct. There are some positions that are dependent on the role that members hold, in the sense that if you are on the Cabinet, you are precluded from being on scrutiny. Similarly, Health and Wellbeing Board is prescribed for Cabinet members. I think what we're going to do today is basically go through these appointments. Where there are prescribed appointments, such as the Health and Wellbeing Board, we can't do. And I think if we elect somebody who subsequently ends up on Cabinet, we will have to unpick that and come back here for a subsequent nomination.
Thank you. So this is for the appeals panel. The proposed chairs are Councillor Bramwell and Councillor Floyd. Yeah. Could we take the votes for Councillor Bramwell first? On the console, please. That is carried. The chair is Tanisha Bramwell. Councillor Bramwell. Thank you. Corporate Governance and Audit Committee, the nominations are Councillor Amjad and Councillor Dransfield. We'll take the votes for Councillor Amjad first by console. That is carried. The next one is District-wide Planning Committee. The nominations are Councillor O'Leary and Councillor Patel. We will take Councillor O'Leary's votes first. That is carried. Can we do it however we do?
No, can't do that.
The next one is the Licensing and Safety Committee. The nominations are Councillor Howard and Councillor Kasia. We'll take the votes for Councillor Howard first.
Quiet.
Can we please keep a bit of quiet in the chamber, please? That's carried. Yeah, Councillor Howard is the chair. Can we do overview and scrutiny? Yep. Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee. The nominations are Councillor Smage and Councillor Holbrook. We'll take Councillor Holbrook first. Please vote.
Holbrook's alphabetical first?
Yeah.
Holbrook first.
That's carried.
Yep.
That. That is carried. Councillor Holbrook is the chair. Personnel Committee, Councillor Anwar and Councillor Wood. We'll take the votes for Councillor. Could we please just have one conversation in the chamber, please?
Well, they should listen and then stop talking.
So the Personnel Committee is Councillor Anwar and Councillor Wood. We'll take the votes for Councillor Anwar first. That's carried. Councillor Anwar. The Standards Committee, Councillor Armour and Councillor Brophy. We'll take Councillor Armour's votes first. Please vote. Could we please have one conversation in the chamber? Thank you. Yeah. That is carried. Councillor Armour. Strategic Planning Committee, Councillor Amjad and Councillor Smith.
Councillor Amjad first.
Yeah, Councillor Amjad, please, if we could vote for that one first. That is carried. Councillor Ramjan. Statutory Officer Dismissal Committee. Councillor Bramwell and Councillor Wood. We'll take the vote for Councillor Bramwell first. That one's not carried. So do we... Yeah, could we move on for the vote for Councillor Wood, please? That is carried. Councillor Wood. We will now move on to the scrutiny panels. Children's scrutiny, Councillor Harrison and Councillor Vickers. We'll take the votes for Councillor Harrison first, please. That's not carried. We'll go to the vote for Councillor Vickers. Please vote. That is carried. Councillor Vickers. Environment and climate change.
Just pause.
Oh.
Just pause.
So there's 3 nominations for this one. Councillor Mortan, Councillor Price, Councillor Taylor. So we'll go through Councillor...
Just make things easier, I'll withdraw my nomination. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. So we've just got 2 nominations now. Councillor Mortan and Councillor Price. We'll go with Councillor Mortan's vote first. Please vote. That is carried. Councillor Mortan. We'll now go to Growth and Regeneration. Councillor Tim Bamford and Councillor Simmons. We'll go for Councillor Bamford's vote first. Please vote now. That is carried. That's Councillor Bamford. Health and Adult Social Care, Councillor Dransfield and Councillor Cassia. We'll go for Councillor Dransfield's votes first. Please vote. That one's not carried. We'll go with Councillor Cassia's votes now, please. Please vote. That's carried. Councillor Cassia. Yeah, so we're ending the meeting. The meeting has now concluded. Please remain seated for the meetings of Licensing and Safety Committee, Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee and Standards Committee.
We'll go out and come back in.
Yeah.